Thank you. Thank you for your indulgence for a small break. We have next up our resolution agenda. It looks like we have 3 old business items and 9 new business. And I would remind you that I'd like to, sometime when you can, tell us what you think about not having a work session and having committee meetings. And I know committee chairman on our new business will be having meetings, I believe the second week of December, and the third week would be our. So let us know how you feel about that. If you want to go back to work sessions, we can do it in a heartbeat.
Yes.
Feel like, and your budget committee members, if you don't have regular meetings, we'll do that. Okay, first up, I believe Mr. Vance has the first resolution now. Mr. Vance, you're ready to burn.
Defer.
Mr. Vance defers item number 2 without objection. We'll move on to item number 3, and Commissioner Stidham, you're recognized on item number 3.
This resolution is to fund construction of the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office and Certified Firing Range. This was brought before the Administrative and Executive Committees, and we had quite a bit of debate and discussion, and it was a excellent forum for that. And some of the things that came out in that was the fact that we needed some professional services up front. So when we got done, it was approved unanimously for both Administrative and Executive Committee on the amendment I'm about to bring forward on this. So it was an interesting evening. Mr. King brought up some very good points, and we'll have those. But without objection, I'll go ahead and read this amendment. If you go down to now therefore be resolved, that whole section is actually going to be reworded. And Teresa, she has a copy of it up there tonight. I've already given her a copy of this. Now for that to be resolved, the Board of County Commissioners, Sullivan County of Tennessee, similar to regular session, approve a 2-phase plan for construction of a certified firing range for Sullivan County Sheriff's Office. The first phase of the plan being approving and appropriate funding for architectural plans and core drilling of the proposed construction site, with the second phase of the plan being the plans and estimated costs being submitted to the Commission for review and final approval. That puts it going out for professional services. We actually get something back to look at it. It gets all the questions answered prior to a final decision being made when we came off of this. And so tonight we'll be voting on this, and it's with the amendment to go ahead and approve the architectural plans and the core drilling.
Mr. Stidham has filed an amendment with the clerk and accepts the amendment. Mr. Vance, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I received a phone call, I think it was from Miss Davis, the person, we were talking about something else. And the location of putting this firing range, she asked a question, and I don't know if she ever got it cleared up, maybe you know. The location of this, is it in the final path of airplanes? Is it in the flight area on that hill? And is there any regulation that could restrict it?
You're not shooting above a 45-degree angle. That question was already has been asked. You're not firing above a 45-degree angle, and that's what the berms are for, to keep anything going up. So there'll be no shooting above a 45, so it wouldn't matter on the aircraft.
I just wondered if FAA has any regulation on it. She was supposed to check on it. I just want to know.
I wouldn't know if the FAA had any restrictions on it, but you wouldn't be shooting at that level.
I know you wouldn't be shooting at that area, but you could. people don't shoot missiles things either, but I'm just saying that FAA needs to make sure it's not, because when we put the radio tower in up there, up on the hills, we had the FAA approval to put that tower up there, that radio tower up behind us, but, okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vance, and, anybody have questions on the amendment and exactly what the bill does now? Everybody clear on what, Mr. Stidham? Okay, gotcha, Larry.
Do we have any approximate cost of what this study and architectural work's gonna cost us right up front?
It'll be 6% of what the total cost comes out to be. And it'll be actual cost, so, there's a limit of 6% on a project like this is set.
Thank you. Further questions for sponsor? Sponsor renews his motion, for, Mr. King, you're correct.
Yeah, that's kind of a wide open deal, 6%. I mean, you can, you know, is it gonna be 600,000, is it gonna be 800,000, or could it be $1 million? You know, I know that, but what I'm saying is you can design whatever you want to. If you want to design a shooting range for $50,000, you can do that. Or if you want to design one for 300,000 or 500,000, you can do it. It's according to what you want to put into it, and then then you got to come back with that 6% on, to find out what your architect and all that's going to cost. So that, to me, that's, I'd like to at least have some kind of a, is it gonna cost 200,000, 300, or 500, or what, before we do this?
Well, we had a cap of $1 million in there, and everyone wanted to take that part of it out. They didn't want to spend that much, or have that in there that we're just gonna turn over that amount of money. We won't know, but the plans that they brought forth on it, they're wanting, it's gonna be building a training center up there, the firing range. Went through all the brief, you were there, Dwight, we went through the brief with them of what their training requirements are and what they were looking at. If you feel comfortable putting something in there to regulate how much we're gonna be spending on architectural fees, so they sit down and they can start looking at it and come back with a plan. So we're gonna be approving the final plan, but he's gonna be coming in here, giving us a brief as everything goes on with it, on what they're gonna be doing and where we're at on this. It's not gonna be, we vote on it tonight, we don't hear about it till we're doing the ribbon cutting. It's gonna be something they're gonna be coming back in here and giving us projections on. So we'd have to get with Chris and kind of figure out where we're gonna be at on that. If we end up spending a large amount of money, we're gonna look at this as we go, each step of the way, but that was the biggest thing. We wanted, you brought up about the core drill, we need to know what we're drilling in up there before we start moving any more dirt. The architectural plans, according to what they're gonna be looking at for building the building, it shouldn't be that crazy, but it's 6% is what's set. Chris already informed us of that. So I understand where you're coming from.
And I agree.
We're gonna be monitoring it all the way.
All I'm saying is, are we gonna have the Chevrolet version or the Cadillac version?
Well, we're gonna go for a good Tahoe version right in the middle. How's that? Put something up there that we can use for years, but not go extravagant, that we can sit and overdo it, not a Taj Mahal, but something we can do that we'd be proud of up there. Not cut corners, but not go extravagant either.
And you can do a lot of that with looking at square footage. But
Yes.
what you're, and what the going rate of square footage is right now on building. With that type of building and what it is, you can look at square footage and you can pretty much get in a ballpark. I mean, I'm not saying we only have the exact number, but, get in a ballpark. So. Then you asked me a question, that's your deal.
There were specs given at the work session by the sheriff as to what he was wanting to build.
Exactly. And all you gotta do is take those specs and look at the square footage and you're going right on building that kind of structure, you could get a ballpark figure.
And
At least give us an idea of what we're looking at.
Well, that's what we're trying to do with this architect, when we sat down with it on this. Now, if you feel comfortable, you wanna put a money amount, stopping the architectural fees at a certain route, I'm agreeable with that. But right now, we're gonna be updated on this, and we're not gonna go overboard, on this to get it done. But the sheriff couldn't be here tonight, he is traveling back from Franklin right now from training. He was hoping to make it here, but ain't gonna make it here before we got to this resolution. But the square footage of that, and I understand what you're saying, Dwight, but, the architectural fees, when Chris sends it out, we know what the percentage is gonna be. We know what we're looking at, but I can't tell you, really, do we wanna put a cap on it right now till we get it, approved and sent out?
All right. I'm good then.
Okay. Commissioner Glover, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we first got into this, Commissioner Stanton, the sheriff spoke that night, and I think he had a dollar figure of around $480,000. Would you be willing to put that amount in that amendment up to $480,000 study on this for a starting point?
For the architectural fees?
6%.
Not go over the architectural
No.
fees or put a limit on?
No, the total amount of the project is $480,000.
With the amendment, the original resolution we put in was not to exceed $1 million. I'm not sure if we can build what we're wanting to build for 450, to put a cap on that may limit to what we actually end up having up there. And we have, this is a chance not to use this is taxpayers' money, but it's lost revenue money we're gonna have coming in to build something nice. It doesn't have to be a Taj Mahal, but to put a limit of 450,000 on it, I think we may be tying the hands of what we can actually get at this time on it. I don't see it going over $1 million. Don't see it getting right at that, but we don't know till they sit down and give us a design, and what we're looking at, and the cost on it when it comes back. That's why we put it in there, that it come back to us, for a final approval, not just hand the money out there. So we'll know what we got when we're getting there. We'll be going back and briefing it along the way. So to tie the hands, the same 450,000, I don't think that's a good, ideal to do.
That was what he suggested to us that night, that the cost would probably be.
That was a while back with costs going up, putting the road in and the water and everything else. I think that may be a little too low for what we're trying to accomplish. Yeah, that was,
Well,
we're
we've
gonna be doing training.
gone from the shooting range now to a training facility, so we've added
Well,
on.
that's what we had, was the building for training. You have to do the classroom training along with actually going out and doing the firing that you're gonna be doing. And he went through a lot of the qualifications, and you weren't here that night, and I'll talk to you about that. We are gonna get you a copy of that PowerPoint to go through all the training scenarios. But it's quite a bit of training that they have to do, classroom instruction type stuff, before they even go out on the range to start shooting. So that'll be TSA, Sullivan County, we'll have constables. It'll be a shooting, a lot of training that goes on there. That's why you have to have a classroom type facility. Even in your fire academies, you have the same thing. You have to have a building for training, and then you have a fire tower that you go in, a smoke tower to train with. So I think 450 might be too low on that.
Okay, further questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, Mr. Stidham renews his motion to adoption of item number 3 as amended, seconded by Commissioner Stanley. Any further discussion? Mr. George? Dwight, you're up.
I've had a little time to figure. What if we put $60,000 to do engineering and draw the architect plans?
That may not be enough, I'm not sure. Chris is not here tonight to give us
I'm
an
not
estimate.
saying it's gonna be $1 million, but that would cover me, and I'm not saying that's what we need to be doing, but that'll get you enough money to start on engineering and the plans.
You double check your math on that, because I didn't figure that one out. Dwight?
60,000 is 6% of $1 million.
That'd fund $1 million.
You including the core drilling?
Well, we got the core drilling.
That will come later after you get the plans, shouldn't it?
Well, actually, you should do the core drilling before you start on the architect.
You
Okay,
can do it either
are
way.
you proposing that as an amendment to amend it to provide a cap of $60,000 at this time?
Yes,
For the architectural,
Yeah.
but leave the drilling in, we'll have to get a figure on that.
right.
I'll accept that.
Sponsor accepts the amendment, Mr. Vance.
That's just for the architectural plan, 60,000.
And then the drilling will be at cost.
The drilling will be at cost.
Anyone else have, okay, Commissioner Glover, you're recognized.
One last question. If we go through this whole process, and then this project does not qualify for the COVID money, what's the next step?
This will, coming out of lost revenue, this should qualify every one of those spoke to, said, and yes, we still have to send it up for approval. If not, we still have to build a training facility, shooting range, as you said. They still have to have the project.
So then the next step's general fund.
And then the next step would be coming out of the general fund, which that $6 million is coming out of the ARPA money that's on lost revenue is still gonna be in our general fund. That money still has to be spent somewhere on a project at the same dates that those other projects have to be spent on. So this is why this is a prime candidate for it.
But we still don't know for sure if it's gonna qualify.
No, I cannot say 100% that we won't know till we submit it. But we still have to have a shooting range for the sheriff's department.
Okay, further questions on item number 3 as amended, with Amendment 1 and Amendment 2? Sponsor renews his motion for adoption of item number 3, seconded by Commissioner Stanley. Seeing no further discussion, we're ready to vote on item number 3 as amended. Board open, cast your vote on item number 3. Everyone voted? Anyone wish to change your vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
21 yes, 3
I
absent.
received necessary majority. Item number 3 as amended is adopted. Next up, item number 4. Commissioner Broughton, you're recognized on item number 4.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Before we get started on this, I tried to get hold of Angela and I missed it. My schedule was busy. And Terry Harper wanted to be added as a co-sponsor. I just want to make sure we've got him on there. Okay, it's not on this copy. I just want to make sure.
I've got it.
Yeah, probably don't. But, anyway, we'll move forward. I just want to make sure, that Terry was on there since he ain't here. We're in prayer. He's in our prayers, him and Judy both. But moving forward with our business here. We reviewed this with the Executive Administrative Committee. Since then, there's been a lot of discussion. I would like to change the amount from $700,000 to $150,000. So I think that'll be more palatable for everybody. A lot of folks were concerned about the dollar amount. The folks, Tony Ponder's put in a lot of time on this. The Greater Indian Springs Community Group has put in a lot of time on this. This money hopefully will be able to come from the lost revenue funds. If not, it will not come from the general fund. As Dan Street pointed out during our meeting, if this does not pass through the COVID test, then it does not come out of the general fund. I think I've hit the highlights. If anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to address them.
Mr. Broughton moves passage of item number 4 as amended. Is that file with the clerk? Madam Clerk, you got that change? Amendment number 1, seconded by Commissioner Laylock and Harper.
Yes, sir.
Time for discussion. Commissioner Vance, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first paragraph, resolution to appropriate funds for the Indian Springs Community Chest to purchase equipment for the volunteer fire department station in the greater Indian Springs. Why would that resolution be that we're appropriating funds to the Indian Springs Community Chest? That should be, we're appropriating funds to the Sullivan County Volunteer Fire Department to purchase equipment.
I'm not opposed to make that change. I'm good with that. We didn't exactly know how to write it up. I'm excellent with it. If you want to make that change, I'm good with it.
There needs to be a resolution to appropriate funds to the Sullivan County Volunteer Fire Department to purchase equipment for the station in Greater Indian Springs.
I'm great with
That
that.
makes it sound like we're giving money to a community chest, and I don't think we need to get into doing that.
That's a very, very good point, and I'm glad to offer that.
Without objection,
Aye.
sponsor accept the amendment to
As a
the
one-time
preamble.
expenditure.
Right, yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Mr. Jones, you're recognized.
This has been going on for several years. I can name at least 6 locations I've been trying to put this.
Yes, sir.
We had one down there for Warriors in Fall Creek once before, and could get people to operate it. What if we fund this? Are we talking about, have you taken out a vehicle? If it doesn't happen, where's the money going? If this doesn't happen, where's the money going?
It'll go back to Bluntville. This is basically a little sister station of Bluntville. So it'll come right back to
So they're
Bluntville.
gonna get an additional funding in Bluntville if this doesn't happen.
I'm sorry,
They're gonna get an above everybody else funding if this doesn't happen.
no, sir, this is just this one-time shot. They will get the truck back. They're gonna buy the truck from Bluntville used. So they'll get their used truck back, is all they'll really get. The Greater Indian Springs community folks are the ones putting up the bulk of this money. They're putting up almost 3 or 4 times more than what we're offering them. And I realize some people are like, well, you know, what about this? You know, this is a great opportunity where we can use money that the landowners in Sullivan County haven't had taken from them to help the landowners.
Most of the other properties, I believe, and I may be mistaken, are all owned by the fire departments. Is that not true?
I don't think so. I think some of them are long-term lease, same as this.
Okay. That was I had some friends call me about.
Yeah, this is a long-term lease, I believe 30 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And I learned something the other day, and this is not really related to this resolution, but just general information. If you come up from Lowe's, you know where the church is right there at the red light past Lowe's, and they built that new retina center? That property is a land lease.
Right.
And I didn't know such a thing existed, and I don't know if y'all have familiarity with a land lease, but if you look into them, it's very interesting, you know. And this is a lot better deal than that.
Well, we have to do at the airport. We
Right.
can't sell property,
Yeah.
federal property.
But, yes, sir.
Well, I just wondered, the other one, this had specifically for COVID money. I didn't know why it didn't go through the COVID process instead of coming as a resolution.
Because whenever the sheriff's department was brought up, the resolution was based on public safety, and this falls under the exact same pattern as that one.
Okay. I just didn't see COVID in his, that's why I was wondering. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. King, you're recognized.
Yes. Mr. Rotten, I brought this up at the executive committee meeting, and I still feel the same way. If this is an annex of Sullivan County Fire Department, then you're gonna give them $150,000 that you're not gonna give every other fire department. That's not being fair with other fire departments. Piney Flats has got an annex. They paid for it themselves. They asked Sullivan County for help, and they never did get help. So they paid for it themselves. They went out and raised the money and done it. So this is really, if we do this, this is a slap in the face to Piney Flats, because they done it on their own. And, you know, then we're bailing this community out. Piney Flats, you know, stood up and gave money for the annex. It's not elaborate, but it works. Even borrowed an old tanker truck from the Forest Service to get by till they could do something different. So, you know, they worked at it, and they made it work. And if this is part of Sullivan County, I think Sullivan County's on the rotation to get a new truck next year.
Yes.
Either let them give them that truck, or the truck that they're replacing, let them take it down there. And to me, that's fair. They're not asked for additional money unless you're gonna give every other fire department in Sullivan County the same thing. At 421 out there, no east out there, they're wanting to build a new station, and I think they've got land, but they can't raise enough money to build a new station. What cities want to build an annex?
Can I address a little bit of this?
Yes, sir.
All right. I hear you, but you just answered your own question.
What?
They want to do it, but they don't have the money. They want to do this, they don't have the money. These folks have the land, they're building the building, we're just helping them get started. The county has traditionally also helped other departments get started. They've done it, they gave money, maybe when Piney Flat started, they didn't. Reminds me of a friend of mine, and no disrespect meant by this, he's a state trooper. And he pulled a guy up for speeding, and the guy said, well, why did you catch me and not the other guy? He said, when you go fishing, do you catch one or catch them all? And we can help who we can help, and this is a good time to help them. I see your point, no disrespect meant. I see your point.
But
It's just a good time to help.
I want to be fair with all the
Right.
fire departments.
And this is a good way to help our landowners without taking money from our landowners. Because we nail our landowners with taxes.
Well, you know, that's the same thing in my area.
Right.
They got down their pockets and gave money to build that.
And these folks have too, and it's getting built,
But,
and they've got the land.
and they supplied it also, so
I
they
understand.
did the total package.
I understand. And these folks are too. It ain't like it's wrapped up as a bow and give to them.
So what's
We're giving them a hand up.
Okay,
you
so
know,
what's 150,000 for?
To
If
help
we're
them get
gonna
it
do it
going.
all, then what's 150,000 for?
To help them get the fire truck. They're still putting a lot in.
Like I said, let Sullivan County give them the one that's the new truck, the new truck that's coming to the rotation. If they wanna give it to them, that's fine. If they wanna take one of their trucks that they've got up there now, let them give it to them, and that's part of them. They're an annex of Sullivan County, so they're not giving it to them, they're putting it down there to use.
I agree, point made.
So, I just don't see we can do this, and be fair with the rest of them. If we did, you know, and another thing, we've got a association that all the fire chiefs go to, and why wasn't this brought through them and have some kind of agreement with them before we brought it here? It's so much, you know, our truck rotation, we're doing that, and it goes so much smoother when everybody's on board. You go through the association and everybody has their time to say what they think, and then you do something. And
Point
this,
made.
you know, this is kind of, you know, it's not going through the procedure it needs to go. That's my opinion.
Point made. You know, like I said, the only reason I brought it forward this way is because the other was, and it fell under the exact same situation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Crawford, you're recognized.
I guess my question is, this $150,000 and the resolution saying to purchase equipment, how far is this gonna go? If you're gonna buy a fire truck?
They've got a fire truck, they're gonna sell them for $125,000 coming from Bluntville. So that'll help Bluntville with the new
That will
fire
leave
truck.
$25,000 for other equipment.
Air packs and stuff like that, yes, sir, and stuff that they need in the building.
How many men will that help equip to run this station? 25,000.
It won't go very far. It won't go very far.
They got equipment up here, it'll be moving down there for the
Right.
fire.
Right.
These ones are farms that are on equipment.
Okay.
Yeah, $25,000 doesn't go near as far as it used to.
Yeah, I understand that. To bring up or to coincide with the point that Dwight is making, if they are the next in the fire truck rotation, then that means there's gonna be an available truck from that department. Is that correct?
Bluntville's getting a new truck,
They're getting a new
and they
truck.
were going to trade this truck, they're going to sell the Indian Springs in for their new truck. That's what this money's doing, replacing the trade-in.
Why would they want to sell a truck to themselves?
Well, they're trying to offset their cost as well.
But they're getting a brand new truck.
Right.
I think I'm supportive of having a station there. I think we're moving a little quick on it because COVID money's available and they're trying to get at the head of the list, in my opinion. And if we can do that, fine. But, you know, we're gonna have to be careful. These $150,000 here and there and everywhere, $1 million here. First thing you know, next year, we're gonna have to raise taxes. You better be real careful, especially if this money is not gonna be appropriated through COVID the relief money that's going to be available.
And this resolution specifically states that if this fails, it's not going on the tax roll. So we covered that.
I understand that, and I'm in total agreement with that. I think there's still a few questions that need to be addressed, but I support what the intention is.
Mr. Vance, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Todd, there's one question, and I agree with Dwight about treating all these departments fairly. And I know all the years, we've always tried to say if we give one department this, we give the other one the same thing. But if we approve this resolution to put $150,000 towards the purchase of equipment or whatever they're gonna do, does that mean when we start looking at all these other departments and say that we agree that we're gonna give Sullivan West $100,000, Bloomingdale $100,000, is Sullivan County Fire Department gonna come back and ask for another $100,000 out of the ARP money?
This station, no. Blunt force.
I'm not talking about the station, I'm talking about agency. Because when we do, they start putting these substations in, then they're taking on the responsibility of the financial burden to operate those stations, okay? Because they do it, doesn't mean they should be coming back up here and saying, okay, we've got this station now, we're gonna need additional money to man and to operate that station there, which Piney Flats has never,
Mhm.
and I remember when Piney Flats put that substation in up there. They've never asked for it. Other departments have put substations. You know, at one time, Warriors Path had a substation in Cooks Valley. They never came to this county commission and asked for any additional money to operate that substation. They never asked for any money to buy any equipment. That substation was closed down. It never was used. So my question is you. If we approve this and we give $150,000, and as we look at this ARP money going forward, does this take Sullivan County Fire Department out of the rotation of what we do for everybody else? Or are they gonna come right back in here and say, well, that was for that station down there, we want another $100,000 because you give Bloomingdale Fire Department $100,000? That's the only question I've got.
I don't know the answer to that question.
The only way I'll vote for that resolution, that is to be in agreement with that department.
Jerry, would you like to field that question?
We'll recess for a minute to recognize Mr. Fleener and Will.
25 words or less. Let's just go to the very beginning, I guess.
Oh, no.
I just need an answer, yes or no. That's all I need.
The Indian Springs community, several years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago, started this. They themselves have raised the money to build this substation. And the money, I do not know exactly how much funds they have right now, but it was to put a substation down there, and here's the issue. No, we're not going to add another truck into the rotation, I can tell you that. We'll be in our rotation just like everybody else. If this substation was out of the picture, the truck that our rotation would be replacing, it would be sold, and that money go toward the new truck, and the equipment that would come off the old truck and go on to the new truck. So if none of this was happening, none of this would be happening. But the community has come together with this substation to, and we came up with the figure, the value of this used truck and the equipment, the hose, the air packs, the extinguishers, everything that makes it certified to be a fire truck was going to be about $150,000. So the Indian Springs community has got the money for the station, we're assuming. I don't know how much they've got, if any, to go toward the truck. So if the truck cannot be funded either some way through the commission, or if they can't fund it, we will probably sell that truck to compensate for the new truck. You know, we can't do both. We can't come up with the funds for the new truck and keep that old truck. That old truck is going to have to be sold to compensate the difference in the expense, or funding's gonna have to be made available to keep it, to put it in Indian Springs. We can absorb what little bit of operational costs there's gonna be. And, the one comment, something about the keeping of the truck and everything, it will furnish the truck for that substation. We will get manpower from that community. We've got 2 members that live in Indian Springs already. Optimistically, we will get members from the fire science school at West Ridge, just like East is getting from their fire science. But this truck is a total separate issue. It's not going, we're not going to expect it to go into the rotation. It's a matter of, if the Indian Springs community, and somebody asked something, if we get the money for this and the substation doesn't pan out, I forget who asked that, but you can rest assured, if the money becomes available for this project and it doesn't pan out, if somehow through all this we have received those funds, I will make sure you get those funds back. We're not gonna take $150 for a project, and if the project doesn't pan out, we're gonna keep the money. No, sir, whoever brought that up. But this the 150,000 has come up because that's what we projected. This truck will affect us if we keep it to put in this substation.
The question I had, Jerry, was this. If we agree to give the $150,000, are you all going to also request to be included in any additional funding that we give to other departments? In other words, are you asking for what we're probably going to do for these other departments? You're asking for that money earlier so that you can have the truck, so you can put it in Indian Springs? But if we do this, are you gonna come back and you're gonna say, okay, that was for Indian Springs. Now, if you give Bloomingdale Fire Department $100,000, we want $100,000 on top of that. Are you gonna ask to come back and ask for that?
No, sir, I do not see that happening. The only time Sullivan County, Piney, Bloomingdale, anybody would come for an additional increase in funding is like what we've done every other year, every 2 or 3 years.
No, I'm talking about the
No.
ARP money, Jerry.
No, sir.
So,
Other than the 100,000 that has been submitted by every department already, yes.
so is this taking away that $100,000 you've already asked for?
No, sir.
So it's still gonna be there?
This is 2 separate projects.
Separate project. So if we approve this $150,000, and then when we get to looking at all the other departments and we agree to give them $100,000, that means you all are gonna get $250,000.
We are going to get 100,000 like the rest of them. That 150,000 is going to go toward that substation. The fire department does not benefit from that.
Then I'll make a motion to amend this resolution to give Piney Flats Fire Department $150,000 to go towards their substation.
Earlier, thank you, we're back in session. Mr. Vance, you propose an amendment?
I have a question.
I've got a list of people who want to talk on this. Mr. Vance had the floor. Did you propose an amendment? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. I make a motion to amend this resolution that we also appropriate $150,000 of the ARP money to go to the Piney Flats Volunteer Fire Department to help provide equipment for their substation in Piney Flats.
That's the proper motion. We have a second. Mr. King is a second, okay. Mr. Punter, do you want to accept the resolution?
We went through the process and turned this into resolution form. I'm going to decline the motion, but tell Mr. Vance if he would like to put in a separate one for Piney Flats, I would support it later. So I respectfully decline.
Okay,
Well, I think we've got a motion and a second, Mr. Chairman.
we have a motion on the floor, and I think I can do this. We've got a motion on the floor to amend, and the sponsor declines. So the motion, we have discussion on the motion. Now, I have a list that was on the board before we got the amendment, and I'm gonna leave those folks when we go back to the resolution. But let's talk about the amendment right now. The floor is open for discussion on the amendment. If you're, okay, Commissioner Stanley, does Cross, Jones, or Cole want to talk on the amendment? You want to talk on the original resolution? So Commissioner Stanley is up next.
Mine's on the original.
On the amendment.
Mine's on the original resolution.
Oh, you want to talk on the resolution?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yes, sir.
you don't want to talk on the amendment. Would you request, when I take you off, Angie, request again to speak on the original motion? Anybody else want to speak on the amendment before we vote on it? Randy, go ahead. You're recognized on the amendment.
Thank you. You know, as we're discussing this, you know, I have 421 Fire and Rescue out in my area. I also think of East Fire Department, Volunteer Fire Department, and also Hickory Tree. I don't honestly know if they're planning on building a substation anywhere in their area. I honestly don't know that, but, you know, I would not want them to be left out either, if that was so. So, you know, I don't know, maybe we need to check with all these fire departments and see what they are doing, if they've got any plans on anything like that, or anything like that.
You're not making a motion other than include them into Mr. Vance's amendment? You know,
Yes,
are you making a motion?
yes, I will.
Mr. Vance, he moved to amend your motion
Right.
to include Hickory Tree and East and 421?
421 Fire and Rescue, Hickory Tree Fire Department, and Sullivan East Fire Department.
Madam Clerk, are you using this?
I'll accept that amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Let's get a second for it, and then we can accept it. Do we have a second on Mr. Morel's amendment? Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Jones, okay? Mr. Vance, we're still on Mr. Vance's amendment. Any further discussion? Anybody on the board? Colette, you want to discuss the amendment?
Well, I just,
You're recognized.
thank you. I do know that Kingsport is looking at a ninth fire station. There are already plans in the work, and so I would also like to add that. Because that is, it will be another substation, or it won't be a substation, but Kingsport currently has 8 stations. I know we're looked at that district, but as one, but this will be a new one with ninth, and I'd like to add it to your amendment.
The city funds those, county don't fund those.
Amendment.
Okay, would you restate your amendment, and then I'm gonna need a second for it. Restate the amendment, Colette.
Just to add on the ninth station for Kingsport to also get the consideration for the 150,000 for furnishings.
Do we have a second? We have a second from Commissioner Cross.
This is, lets everybody know what I'm gonna do.
Okay, no, we've got too much noise. Do it one more time, Colette. Let's,
Can you pull your speaker a little bit closer? Your voice, turn your microphone.
I thought it was just me, but, yeah.
I'm sorry, I just was adding to Mr. Vance's motion to include the ninth station that's getting built in the Kingsport. It'd be District 9 that will be adding a station for the same 150 to help with the equipment.
Okay, and that was seconded by Commissioner Cross. Commissioner Cole, you want to speak on the amendment? Commissioner Cross, you seconded.
Yes, I would like to speak on the amendment.
Okay, Commissioner Cole first, then you next. Commissioner Cole, you're recognized.
Why don't we go ahead and just cover everybody and put everybody in the amendment, whatever fire station, substation, volunteer, city, whatever we can, why don't we go ahead and just cover that? That would save everybody from ringing in, so we can just blank it.
Okay, you're going to amend Mr. Vance's amendment to include all fire stations in the county and city.
That would make it fair, yes.
All fire.
All fire.
Or substations, whatever.
And that would come out to about 1.5 million.
Go ahead and add Kingsport.
Mr. Cole's got the floor. We've got too much, she can't hear. I can hear all this.
Yes, sir, that covers everybody's amendments and the substations and what we're doing and
Ms.
everything.
Matthew, do we have a second to Mr. Cole's amendment? We have a second?
Hey, Chairman?
Commissioner Hutton seconds it. Okay. Gosh, I hope you're getting all this, because we're gonna have to go back and vote.
Can I ask a question,
Mr. Matthew, do you accept the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do.
He accepts the amendment, so Mr. Vance's motion is amended. Mr. Cross, you're on the amendment. Let me, gosh, okay, there you go.
I believe Commissioner Cole covered,
Well, I can't get you on just a second, I'm gonna have to take somebody off.
He's on.
I'm on, okay.
You're on.
He's not showing, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I believe Commissioner Cole covered the topic I was gonna speak on.
Good.
What's the price on that,
Okay, we're on the amendment. Okay, we can't get that on the board. So, Mr. Vance, you renew your motion for adoption.
Mr. Chairman, I think all the motions that I've made, and the amendment I made was to include Piney Flats, and the amendments as they came through, it looks that there's 10 volunteer fire departments and 2 city fire departments. That means all the fire departments will get $150,000. And so the resolution now will be appropriating $1.5 million.
You've heard that explanation.
I haven't had a chance to speak yet.
Now, well, I've got, Madam Cross-White is asked to be recognized. You're seconding Gary?
No,
You want to be recognized?
I want to be recognized on this amendment.
You're on before Ms. Cross-White, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure I've got this clear in my head. This other amendment to this resolution that we have, if the original resolution does not clear COVID, and does not clear and can't be spent from the COVID funds, this resolution is dead. It doesn't go any farther. So would this second one that Mr. Vance has would also die without any funding,
The
correct?
resolution dies, everything about it dies.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's see. Ms. Cross-White, you're on the amendment, right?
Madam.
Yes, sir, I think I am. Thank you.
You're recognized, I think.
Mark, what if some of these fire departments, they don't want a substation? Are all of them want a substation?
Ms. Crosswhite, Madam Crosswhite.
That's right.
Madam Crosswhite, the point I'm trying to make is if this resolution passed the way it was, Mr. Fleener was not willing to agree that that would be their part of ARP money. And that means they're gonna come back and be on the list for the additional funding. We've always tried to treat all the fire departments across the board the same. And there's history says that we never recognized the substations. So when I made the motion to include Piney Flats, other amendments were made to include the other departments, which one is the East Fire Department is looking at building a new station, 421 is looking at building a substation. So if we do this for them, then all these other departments are gonna have just as much right to come and make a request as Sullivan County's done. So we're getting ourselves in a situation, if we approve this one, all the other ones could come, and we're gonna have to make a decision, and we wanna be fair to everybody, correct? But if we give this money to them to buy the equipment, the $150,000, and then as we go looking at all these other departments that are coming and asking for money, Sullivan County's done been taken care of. But Mr. Fleener said that the request for the additional money that they've all put in right now, they're going to come back and still be on the list of asking for another $100,000. So we're setting precedents to treat a department, in my opinion, unfair, the other department being treated unfairly, that's all I'm trying to say. If they will agree to the $150,000 and being their part of the ARP money, and it's over with, I'll support the resolution. Then we deal with the other departments, and we know they're gonna give $150,000.
So you're saying this is just for substations? That we're just voting for $150,000?
If we fund this substation, then we need to be funding the other substation.
Does this knock the fire departments out the $100,000 that they requested before? I'm just asking, is this going to just be used for departments that want to do substations?
Well, if we're gonna start funding substations with this one, then we need to go on record for the future, any substations that come in front of us, we're gonna start funding. We've never done it in the past. And so we're setting a new precedent. Now, I got caught in this 3 years ago over us funding purchased rescue trucks that we had never done before, and we took that responsibility on 3 years ago. So if we're starting another responsibility of $150,000 for substations, then every fire department that comes up here want $150,000 for substations, they should be entitled to it. If we're going to maintain the practice that we've always tried to do, is to treat all of them the same. That's all my point.
Well, I agree with you on that, and this would be coming out of the ARP money, correct?
It'll be coming out of ARP money, but they're also giving up their rights to come back and ask for the other additional $100,000 that they requested. That's all I'm saying. If you want the $150,000 for the substation, then technically it's the money that you're going to be getting out of the ARP money, and then we will look at the other departments based on what we did for Sullivan County.
But if they're not building a substation, they're still gonna get the $150,000.
It's irrelevant. If
Yeah,
you're
no,
going,
it's not either, it's, I mean, right now they're asking for $100,000 each fire department.
that's right, and Sullivan County's asking for $150,000.
Count as Sullivan County.
Right.
Okay, well, let's say that the next, well, we can't give all of them if they're not gonna build a substation.
But we've got departments that are running substations. Piney Flats has had substations since I can remember. I think Travis Justice said 1988 they run a substation in the Piney Flats area, and they have never received the first penny from this county. Not the first penny. So they should be entitled to $150,000 since they're operating a substation.
I agree with this, but it is coming out of ARP money, so.
Well, then they don't.
If they don't have a substation right now, you're saying later, when this money is gone, where's that $150,000 gonna come from? The ones that don't have a
It's a
substation.
one-time expenditure.
I know it's a one-time expenditure, but
It'll have to go to general fund if we're gonna.
that's
do
what
it
I'm trying to
outside.
get at.
We're increasing our financial responsibility going forward. That's the point I'm saying. The point I'm saying is they want the $150,000 out of the ARP money. If the ARP money is approved and they want to use it for that purpose, that is their privilege to do whatever they want to with it. But in the same token, if we start funding substations and these other departments start putting substations, then we're obligating and committing ourselves to fund them going forward, and that's my biggest concern.
My concern is, so you're saying we're gonna give them $150,000, all of them right now, and then they can't come back and ask for the $100,000.
It's approved by the token.
I know that's, I know
Nobody
that.
knows.
Mark, there's a flaw in that logic. There's a big flaw in that logic, because everything that has to be purchased has to go through purchasing. And they've got, if you look at the back of your packet, we have their ARP request, grant request, on the back of tonight's package that we're gonna be reviewing. If you're saying that money is going away, there is no way, if you write them a check for $150,000, there is no way to track those receipts, follow up, and it's all gonna end up, we're gonna be losing $1.8 million coming out of the general fund by the logic of that, because he can't pass the test for the ARPA money, because their request is on the back. They filtered these requests. These will probably clear.
That, we're talking about two different things.
Yes, Mark, we are, but we're talking about using ARPA money If you're just gonna say, we're gonna flat give them $150,000, we still have to justify every purchase that is done. That's why we have this in the back.
Gary, I understand that, but what I'm saying is the request that have came in has been $100,000 from the departments.
Yes, we have.
Sullivan County is asking for $150,000 for ARP money, plus their request is $100,000 in this list. That makes $250,000 they're asking for ARP money. And it'll have to go through the guidelines, I understand that. The point I'm trying to make is if we give them $150,000 and it goes through the regulations for a substation, then Piney Flats should be getting $150,000 for their substation, plus they should be considered for $100,000 of the ARP money too.
And they need to put in a request on this part of the grant.
Yes.
I'm saying that.
I appreciate the conversations going on, but you're
I'm
out
sorry,
of
Mr.
order.
Chairman,
Well, you're out
out
of
of
order.
order.
You're out of order. Because I've got people on the list that want to speak on the amendment, and Dwight, you're on the amendment, and I've got Andy on the amendment, right? Is that right? Okay. Dwight, you're on the amendment.
Okay, I'm on. You know, when the fire departments brought their request, I mean, Jerry carried around the folder and he had all this stuff together that each fire department went through and they agreed on how much that they was asking for. Each fire department was the same amount of money, $100,000 is what they're requesting. If Sullivan County wants to take their $100,000 and move it to this substation, that's their deal. That's whatever they want to do. But if we're adding more money, like Commissioner Van said, if we're putting another $150,000, then they're getting $100 from like everybody else, and then if we put another $150 on top of it, they're getting $250,000. That's the way I do arithmetic. I don't know about everybody else, but that's the way I look at it. So, you know, even if you give them $150,000, you're still giving them $50,000 more than what the other fire departments are getting. So, to me, $100,000, and if Sullivan County wants to take their $100,000 and put it down there to a new substation, then that's our business, and that's the way I look at it. But there again, if you start giving to one, you got to get, and you know what, just what we went through, and that's exactly what it's going to be. And I don't know if we can afford to do all this, what we're talking about. But it proved the point. If you do for one, you've got to do for everyone we've got if you're going to be fair.
Okay, Ms. Stanley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. How many of the substations are there for the fire department? 301? And that's Piney Flats right now?
Yes.
Well, if all the fire departments are getting $100,000 they're requesting with the COVID money, then why don't we just take an extra 100,000 instead of the 150 for Todd's resolution, and then give Piney Flats 100,000 for their substation?
You're still going back to the same thing, you're not treating everybody.
That wasn't the resolution.
Okay. I would ask if you're going to amend Mr. Vance's amendment.
No, I was just asking if,
Okay. You're just trying to reach a solution, understand? Okay, right now, I've got Mr. Locke and Mr. Jones, who are on the board, to speak on the original motion. Good, we're good there. Do we have anybody else?
Mine was on Mr. Fleming. He got away before I could ask him the question.
Well, we'll get him back up when we get on the original resolution, okay? Well, he wasn't speaking, well, he was speaking. We'll get him back up there. Does anybody else have a question about Mr. Vance's amendment, who says that it will add $1,500,000 to, about outgo, and that it will be subject to provisions of the American Recovery Plan Act, which means that all purchases have to go through purchasing for each one of those fire stations for the spending of that $1.5 million. Is that where we are, Mark?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We have a motion, properly seconded. We have amendments filed with the motion, and all the amendments have been accepted, so we're ready to vote on Mr. Vance's amendment. So, Mr. Stidham, you're on the amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure my mind is clear on this. If we vote yes for Mr. Vance's, then everything, that other 100,000 these people have in the back of our packets that they've already submitted goes away.
That's correct.
Mr. Vance, answer that question.
And let me just real briefly, if you look at these requests, Avoca asked for 100,000, Bloomingdale asked for 100,000, Bristol asked for 101,000, Concord asked for 100,000, East Sullivan County asked for 100,000, Hickory Tree asked for 100,000, Piney Flats asked for 100,000, Sullivan County Fire Department asked for 50,000. Sullivan West asked for 139,000, and Warriors Pass asked for 100,000. I just want to let you know that there's departments asking for different amounts.
Okay, we're on the amendment, and I believe we're ready to vote. Anybody else want to speak on the amendment? I've got a full board, so I can't see sometimes when you push your buttons. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you take the vote on the amendment?
Baker, absent. Blaylock, absent. Broughton,
No.
Calton,
Keep back.
Cole,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Cross,
Yes.
Crosswhite. No. Gardner,
No.
George,
Yes.
Glover,
Yes.
Parker Road. Absent. Hutton,
No.
Jones,
No.
King,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Locke,
No.
Morrell,
Yes.
Pierce,
No.
Stanley. Yes. Starnes,
No.
Stidham,
No.
Vance,
Yes.
Woods.
No.
Would anyone like to change their vote?
I'm gonna change mine to no.
Ten, yes. 11, no. 3, absent.
Having failed to receive the necessary majority, the amendment is rejected. We're back on the original motion for adoption of item number 4. Mr. Broughton renews his motion, properly seconded. We're back on discussion. We have a list. Mr. Locke I just turned you off and you've been on not to go ahead and press again, Hunter. You're recognized.
Okay, this could be a great thing for the community of Indian Springs. So let me first off say this, if all these other fire departments wanted a substation, they would have a resolution out here for us to vote on, just like this one is. Looking back up demographically over Sullivan County, Indian Springs has its own little place in this county. And they've never had really competent fire service. It's been a prolonged on-scene time from these departments that serve that particular community. And it's annexed inside the city and then it goes back out in the county. And the departments that serve that area is Sullivan County, being mutual aid back up by Bloomingdale, which comes from 10 or 15 miles. And then you have Warriors Path that backs up that area. And I've been out there first hand, okay? But, you know, I've served here for 3 years, and not to get heated about it, but what just happened is embarrassing. First of all, we don't give monies to the cities for fire departments. And for you to accept that motion is bad. This community deserves a fire department, okay? It would also help their homeowners insurance, their ISO rating would go down. And I think Sullivan County means good, speaking as a fire department, to put a substation there. And if I was in that community as a taxpayer, after listening to this, go back and forth, I'd be pissed. We need to do what this commission is to do, and that's serve the people who vote us here. And not grandstand and go back and forth about who needs what. It's unacceptable. And I hope we can all get together here and look at the picture and move forward. That community needs a fire station. You're widening 126. I'm sure they'll do MBAs out of that and run car wrecks. But we need to look at the picture and stay on the subject here, not everything else in this county.
Mr. Broughton, you're recognized.
I'd like to respond to Mr. Locke. Thank you, Mr. Locke. Something to add to what you just said. We've been public about this. I've had 0 calls complaining, 0. I think that's an important thing for everybody to know. Nobody's called us and say, hey man, what are you doing? You know, I've had a couple commissioners call and ask questions and give me ideas, and I appreciate that. But as far as people, I've had several people call and say, thanks, we need that. I just thought y'all needed to hear that.
We're on the motion. Mr. Jones, you're recognized.
Mr. Fleener made a statement, he didn't know how much money.
Jerry, would you come back up?
We can go back and pull the record if we
We'll
need to.
recess, we'll probably recess to recognize Mr. Fleener for a question.
Jerry, you made a statement, you didn't know how much money the community chest had for this when you were being asked about the money. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. They may have the money already raised for this. And we may not even need to have this resolution. I kind of think this resolution is way ahead of time. We need to, for this. I think my point is, this should have been held off to the other COVID requests. Because we don't even know how much money they got. You said in your statement, you didn't know how much money, they may have enough money, is what you said.
I do not know how much money they have. In the conversations about the station, we've tried to build a very conservative station with the funds. And again, first of all, I apologize as an individual and as a representative of this for this delay, or I don't like to see it when it gets heated, as somebody was saying. But, and to address Mr. Vance, it is 2 separate issues. And like he read off the list, every department, and they've worked on this, has worked to come up with a list of capital expenditures. That's what that $100,000 was for each fire department.
I'm going to ask you to just respond directly to Sam's question and not bring this whole thing back up.
If we don't know how much money they've got raised, I'm not even sure 100,000 is needed at this time. They may have that money already in their reserves over there. I mean, I know I think at least 5 other locations this was gonna be.
I think
And our road town put money up for it, then it moved out of the Holston community, 3 places down there, and then it was gonna be at West Ridge. Then it was gonna be at Indian Springs School. They were gonna try to take the road town building one time. And they didn't have any authority to do that.
I think
This
the best
thing's moved
assessment,
around.
Sam, did you have a question?
My
Sam,
question was.
Did you have a question he can answer?
Well, does he know how much money they
He
got?
just said he
Do we-
did.
no, sir,
Then
that's
I
what I
don't
was
think
gonna
we need to
recommend.
act on this until we know what
I
the
would
community's
recommend that we
needs,
see how much they
what
have
the
to fund.
community's needs really are. That's,
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And
Thank
that
you.
would be up to the sponsor.
Sam had a question for you, he asked it, you couldn't answer, and that's where we are.
Mayor?
Now, the sponsor,
Tony Ponder's here, he can answer that question, Mr. Dunn.
okay, I will recognize him. Sir, if you'll give us, we know Drew, if you'll give us your name and address, we'll need it for the record. We're recessed.
Tony Ponder, 245 Park Ridge Court,
Okay.
in Indian Springs for the Swarth Fire Department. But I represent the Indian Springs Community Chest. We have the money to fully fund the fire hall. We can't fund the truck. We can get we have the money to build the fire hall. We have gone into a long-term agreement with Cassidy United Methodist Church to provide the land. We've busted through some of the things that you were just talking about, all these long-term issues of where's it gonna be? Can we put it next to the school? No, we can't put it there. We just put it down there where the Chinese place is. No, that's in the city property. All of those things we finally solved. We've got the money to build the fire hall. We're asking for a little help to equip the truck, the used truck that they're gonna put in the fire hall. Right now, if nothing happens, that used truck would come to us. It wouldn't have any air packs, it wouldn't have any hoses. This 150 is just to get that truck workable in a fire hall that we're gonna have built by the middle of the year.
Okay,
And if we don't get the money, he's gonna sell the truck, and we've got a fire hall that doesn't have any trucks in it. So, I hope that answers the question.
thank you, I believe you answered the question. Next up, we're gonna have Mr. King on the motion.
There you go. There again, I heard Mr. Locke quote several things, and I agree with everything that he said. Piney Flats was in the same position about 18 years ago. Piney Flats, the community, raised money and built our substation. Didn't ask for it. They came to Sullivan County, but they never did get any money. So that's my point is, you know, if Piney Flats could do it, then Union Springs can do it. And there's no difference between Union Springs and Piney Flats. So if one can do it, the other can do it.
We've been down that road and you made your point. You made your point.
Can I respond to that? My name was mentioned.
Okay, I think you're right, Mr. Locke.
All right, thank you. So
Just keep it.
demographically, Piney Flats is totally different than Indian Springs. And number two is, this commission wasn't serving back when they requested or asked for that money. This is 2022, almost, okay? So, state, let's look at the picture overall here and move forward.
Thank you. Andrew Stanley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. We all should look at this whole resolution. This is about need, the need of that community, and shouldn't it be about fairness right now? And I would like to call for question and go ahead and take a vote on this.
I have to call for the question. Without objection, we're on the question. The board's empty, so we're ready to vote. Mr. Broughton renews his motion, properly seconded by Blaylock and Harper wrote. And Madam Clerk, we're ready to vote, I believe. So when the board opens, cast your vote on the resolution as presented originally, without amendments. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote?
Randy?
Madam Clerk, take the vote.
17 yes, 4 no, 3 absent.
Have received necessary majority. Item number 4 is adopted. And let me stop before we go on to new business, because it was part of the provision of this resolution was that it would be funded under American Recovery Plan money and not. So, Mr. Taylor, would you speak to exactly how that money has to be accounted for? Because even though it's passed on the resolution, still, if it's funded by the American Recovery Plan.
That would have to be an amount that would have to be, have to have justification written up. And so, just like the others, gonna have to be the $100,000, I feel like there's a good chance it can be justified for COVID. However, when we start putting another 150,000 with it, we'll have to wait and see. I can't say it can be, I'm not gonna say it can be. It's sort of what's written up. And the write-up is the responsibility of the agency has to get him money.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
It's not ours.
I just think as we have resolutions dealing with the American Recovery Plan money, we need to keep that in mind, that it's not like spending out of the general fund. And it will come under certain conditions, and we will eventually deal with all the issues that you all talked about here tonight with each individual fire department. This is not a bad discussion, but we maybe are going to have it in 2 or 3 months. Next up, new business. Mr. Calton, you're recognized on item number 5.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if I want to have a resolution and ask for a vote after the one we just had. So clear your minds and your heart and think on this resolution. But this resolution, it hasn't been through committees. I mean, they discussed it when they had their committee, and the county attorney, he corrected some things that was corrected at the bottom of the resolution. But I have spoke with several commissioners, and I was gonna see briefly how you felt about it, because if you feel okay with it, I want to put it on waiver rules, but if you don't, I'll put it on first reading. So at this time, I will entertain or have someone to entertain any questions or concerns about this resolution.
Ms. Calvin moves adoption of the resolution. Ms. Calvin has introduced this as a first reading. Anybody have any questions for her on first reading?
No, I want to put it on waiver rules if I can.
Okay. Now, Ms. Calvin wants to move to suspend a waiver rule for the immediate introduction and adoption. Properly seconded by Commissioner Harper.
And I was going to add Hunter Locke as a co-sponsor.
And Mr. Locke, without objection, will be as co-sponsor here now. So we have Mr. Locke, is that how you want to be recognized as co-sponsor?
I need to answer a question for Sam.
On this resolution?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're recognized.
These quotes were from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and the reason that numbers are different per department is for age. Some have older and some are younger first responders. So that's how the age or the monies are different. And it was quoted through the sales rep through Blue Cross Blue Shield.
And Hunter, since we didn't have the microphone on, would you state what Mr. Jones's question was that you just answered? Because it won't be on the record if you don't turn your microphone.
He wanted to know how Bloomingdale was 12,404.76, Sullivan West numbers is 11,327.76, Warriors Path had a total of 13,195.56.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions for sponsor or the co-sponsor? Seeing none on the board, we're ready to vote on item number 5. Now, remember, we only have 22 members currently present. 21, one absent. Yeah. So it still takes 16 votes. I guess I'm speaking for the two that we have with a semi-leave of absence. And I think so it requires 16 votes for passage. Board's open. Cast your vote. Everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
20 yes, 4 absent.
Have received the necessary majority.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is passed. And let me expound a little bit on that. I'm going to ask, with these extended absences, I'm going to ask the county attorney what we need to do, because we might need to reduce that number to be able to suspend the rules. So I'll tell you I'm going to do that when he gets back in the office. Okay, next up, item number 6, Mr. Morrell, you're recognized on item number 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution requesting that a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit sign and a stop sign be put on a road up in the upper end. It's called Rush Road. It's been approved by the Highway Department, and I move for adoption, please.
Randy, we have a question from Mr. Crawford.
Yeah, Randy, how many miles is in Rush Road?
You know, it's a short, up there where we call it a short road. I would estimate it's probably, it's probably less than a fourth of a mile.
So there won't be a lot of signage?
It's a dead end road.
Okay, yeah.
Did you ask to waive the rule, Randy?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Brown moved to waive the rule for immediate introduction and adoption of item number 6, second by Commissioner King. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on item number 6. When the board open, cast your vote on item number 6. Everyone voted? Anyone wish to change the vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
20 yes, 4 absent.
Have received the necessary majority, item number 6 is adopted. And on first reading, item number 7, Commissioner Pierce. You're recognized on item number 7 on first reading.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to request waiver of rules on this item. This is another opiate settlement arrangement that has been made. This resolution authorizing Sullivan County to join the state of Tennessee and other local governments as participants in the Tennessee State Subdivision Opiate Abatement Agreement and approving the related settlement agreements. This Tennessee has joined a broad coalition of states and local political subdivisions in reaching nationwide settlements with the 3 largest pharmaceutical distributors, AmerisourceBergen Corporation, Cardinal Health Incorporated, and McKesson Corporation, and manufacturer Jason Pharmaceutical Incorporated, and its parent company, Johnson & Johnson. If these settlements are fully adopted nationally, the distributions will pay a maximum of $21 billion over 18 years, and Johnson & Johnson will pay a maximum of $5 billion over 9 years. Most states have joined the settlement, but for the agreement to become effective, a critical mass of subdivisions, counties, and cities must sign onto the settlement by January the 2nd, 2022. If the settlement becomes effective, Tennessee will be eligible to receive more than $613 million over 18 years, with these maximum payments depending on the settlement incentives being reached. Payments could begin as soon as April 2022. Most funds will be dedicated to future opiate abatements and remedication programs benefiting all regions of the state. If maximum payments are earned, up to $92 million of the settlement funds would be paid directly to Tennessee counties and municipalities from the subdivision fund. Now, on down in the resolution, you will see that the Tennessee legislation enacted Public Chapter 491 during the 2021 regular session of the 112th Tennessee General Assembly and was signed into law by Governor Bill Lee on May the 24th. So that allows Tennessee to participate in that legislation. The recent legislation also allows for the release of all state and subdivision claims against these companies if the settlement becomes effective, and this process should ensure the maximum payments. So it is vital that Sullivan County join the settlement before the January 2nd, 2022 date. So if there's no objection, I will say we'll request the waiver of rules. Also, those that would be voting affirmative or yes, that they be added as a co-sponsor. So if there's no objections to any of those or questions,
without objection, Mr. Pierce moves for immediate introduction and adoption of item number 7. Seconded by Commissioner Gardner. Commissioner Gardner, you wish to be recognized?
I was going to request the body be added.
That's body be added. Without objection, all those voting in the affirmative will be listed as co-sponsors. Any questions for the sponsor? Requires 16 votes for passage. Seeing none, we're ready to vote. Board open, cast your vote. Everyone vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
21 yes, 3 absent.
Have received necessary majority. Item number 7 is adopted. Next up, item number 8. Mr. Crosswhite, you're recognized on first reading.
Thank you, Chairman. This is negotiate the proposal for the purchase of the Bluntville Elementary and Bluntville Middle School property. I'm not gonna read it all, but it boils down to that we're gonna give, if this passes, the county mayor will have the right to negotiate with the Sullivan County School Board Chairman, along with any other persons that desire to include in this negotiation, to initiate a proposal for the purchase of this property. So all we're basically doing tonight is giving the mayor the opportunity to go into negotiation to buy this property for the county.
You've heard the explanation, properly seconded by Commissioner Leonard. We have some discussion, questions. Commissioner Stanley, you're recognized on the resolution.
Thank you, Chairman. I really have mixed feelings about the county commission having to purchase a school property when the county taxpayers has already paid for it once. And I've had some mixed feelings about that we're having to turn around and purchase it twice now. And I would like for, if the county has a need for it, for some of the offices that Commissioner Vance was talking about, we could do that. And if we're gonna be using it for county purposes, then I don't feel the need that the county commission would have to purchase it from the school board.
Commissioner Stanley, I agree 100% with you, but that is not our choice right now. The school department, school board is saying that property is theirs. I know the mayor and Dan have met with their officials, and I mean, I agree that the county taxpayers have already paid for this once, and we're paying for it again, but that's just the way it is right now. The school board is saying it's their property, so we either buy it or let them sell it.
Mr. Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Crosswhite, this is an awkward situation, and there's been a plethora of misinformation about monies back and forth. So I would like to make an amendment to your proposal that any monies that we give the school system goes into a special fund to support the communities using the facilities. That way, this amount of money should cover the $300,000 that they can't seem to locate for the next 5 to 6 years.
I will be glad to make that amendment.
Thank you.
You accept that amendment?
Yes, sir, I will.
Okay. Back on the motion, Commissioner Gardner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question for the sponsor. Has this particular property been up for bid at any point in time? So that the public has not.
We have till January the 1st to decide if the county's gonna purchase this property or not. Then if we say no, then they'll go up for bid.
Okay. And the school board is on board with your resolution?
It's my resolution, I hope they are.
There's not been a communication with
There
them
has
about
been
it?
communication with the mayor and Mr. Street and the members of the school board, so, like I said, they have to be on board with it, because they've given us to January the 1st to decide if the county wants to purchase this property or not.
Okay.
So if we don't do anything by January the 1st, then that's it, so. I like to put it on waiver of rules, because we're running out of time.
Yeah, and if I can put my mayor's hat on, John, it's basically a right of first refusal to the commission. And really, this resolution is to see if there's interest in the commission. And so, put my chairman's hat back on. Yeah, Commissioner Stanley, you're recognized.
I guess that was my next question. Have we got use for it? I mean, does the county have any need for that building, or have they set a price on how much it, or is that your negotiation between?
There is an appraisal that they've got, and I think it was maybe $1.1 million, and with demolition value $700,000. We'll share. I got that appraisal yesterday. I'll share it with the commission. I'll share the appraisal page because it's pretty thick. You don't want me sending all that to your home printer. So I'll have Angela send you all the appraisal page on the appraisal where they talk about value.
What part of that property do we own? Do we own the athletic fields, or is it?
That is a discussion that the mayor will have to, and Dan will have to discuss with the school board. The school board is saying they own all the property. I personally think we do own part of the property for the county, but there again, all this is doing is letting the mayor and Dan and Mr. Street negotiate with them. And, you know, this is all we want for right now.
There is some disagreement among the group that met about who owns the 12.25 acres. I believe there's a 5-acre plot that has no deed. And the building properties are deeded to the school. So
the official buildings is, and then there's question about the other 12 acres.
right, that would have to be negotiated. And like I say, if the county commission has interest in it, we're trying to see if, and then see what the process is. And that's all we talk about.
That's all we're talking about.
If I'm negotiating and we actually have a proposal, and I don't know if we'll have a proposal, but Mr. Jones will take it back to the board, I'd bring it to you all, with provisions, and we'll go from there. And if you have an interest, we'll pursue that. That's That's what we're doing. Okay, Dwight King, you're recognized. I'm sorry, Sam Jones, you're recognized, and then Dwight King.
A lot of what we just discussed, I would encourage you to pull up today's Times News. Mr. Osborne had a real good article that went in detail on every single item, appraisal, what property our attorney and mayor has determined from their studies that we own. There is that section that appears nobody owns. And some of us that were back here a few years ago, I don't think any property, the buildings are worth a whole lot. We, Dwight may have been around, and Mark, we had Joe Mike go in and one summer and go into the middle school because the floors were falling in, and put steel beams under the floors just so they could continue to use it until, it's, to me, it's not a piece of property. We might want the property for something else, but I don't know how much storage we could put in it and feel safe.
Mr. Jones, there again, we're not really discussing the shape of the buildings, because I know the chiller's gone and other things. We're just giving the mayor and Mr. Street approval to negotiate with the school board. It's not the shape of the buildings.
Mr. King, you're recognized.
And I agree with that. I just have a question. How can you negotiate with somebody when you don't know what you're negotiating? That's my, I think I'm for, pursuing this. But it's, and if they give us to January the 1st or the 4th or what to make our mind up, still, what are we negotiating?
Commissioner King, the price. We're willing,
Yes.
the mayor and Mr. Street will bring back to us what we're willing to pay for that property. Now, if you don't want to do it, you need to be talking to the mayor and Mr. Street. Because that's all we're doing tonight, is giving them authority.
I agree.
If I could add to it, Dwight, I think what we'd have to do is reach an agreement on how much of the land before we even talk about price.
Exactly.
Yeah, you gotta say, okay, are we in agreement who owns the land? And if we reach an agreement there, then we can go and say, okay, is the county having it? Yes. And then when we come back, and the county has to find that, and you all would want to know what it would be used for. So, we're a long way away, but let me say this, in our meeting with, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Street, Mr. Bud, I believe, so, they put an arbitrary date out there, January 3rd or something like that. And that's just the date they had to put on it. If we have a real interest, they're gonna work with us to take that date on. But you're right, you gotta figure out what the product is before you negotiate the price. That's exactly right. Okay, any other questions, for the sponsor?
Call for question, please, sir.
Not necessary, no more questions. We're gonna vote on it anyway. If you wanna vote on calling the question, we'll do that.
I can't hear you because there's too many little conversations.
Too many conversations going on? Well, I'm hearing them all now. Okay.
Waiver.
Let's move on to vote. Let's quit talking. Let's move on to
Yes, sir.
vote. Okay?
I agree.
Okay.
Waiver of rules.
Will the board open, cast your vote on the motion for immediate introduction and adoption of item number 8? Has everyone voted? Anyone want to change your vote? Madam Clerk, take a vote.
20 yes, 1 no, 3 absent.
Having received the necessary majority, item number 8 is adopted. And let me say, we'll keep the commission informed, and we've had good discussions, good, reasonable discussions with the people in the school department. So I expect that to continue. Next up, item number 9, Commissioner Stidham, you're recognized on item number 9.
This is on first reading. We'll be discussing this in the upcoming committee meetings.
First reading. Anybody have questions for sponsor? Seeing none? Seeing none, we're ready to go on to item 10. Commissioner Gardner, you're recognized on item number 10.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 10 simply addresses aligning the constable districts to match the changes made to the commission districts as we did last month, based on the information and proposals gathered from the redistricting committee. It only affects districts 1 and 5, as we discussed, just very, very small changes. And to any of the constables that were reading about this resolution earlier, does not affect anything other than what I mentioned. Does not affect anything other than what I mentioned. Pending discussion, I move passage on item 10 on waiver of rules, please.
Mr. Gardner moves to immediate introduction and adoption of item number 10, seconded by
Mayor,
Commissioner
I think Commissioner Woods would like to be a co-sponsor on this.
Commissioner Woods
Would you like to be a co-sponsor on this, sir?
is co-sponsor. Without objection. Any questions for Mr. Gardner? This is on the recommendation of Mr. Booter, I assume. Any questions? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. When the board open, cast your vote on item number 10. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Take a vote.
20 yes, 4 absent.
Have received the necessary majority, item number 10 is adopted. Next up, item number 11, Commissioner Sullivan, you're recognized on item number 11.
This is to provide funding for the Blumpville Veterans Park. I can say this, talking to all the commissioners about this, this is gonna be a centerpiece here for Blumpville. And I do appreciate all the support that we've got on this. We'll be asking for waiver of rules tonight. We do have Mr. Johnson and Mr. Mike Hannon out there, they're part of the committee on this. Sheila was planning on having us a package, and her husband ended up having surgery, so we'll get a packet out to you with all the examples of what it's gonna look like. But I move we go ahead and call this a night.
First reading.
Waiver of rules.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said go ahead and call this a now. I would have called it now. You did say that, didn't you?
And voting together here.
Well, without objection, Mr. Stedman moves to read the introduction and adoption of item number 11, seconded by Commissioner Crosswhite. Any questions? Without objection, we're on item number 11. The board open to cast your vote. Has everyone voted? Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
20 yes, 4 absent.
Have received the necessary majority. Item number 11 is adopted tonight. We will have to wait until next month. We can't call it a night yet, though, Gary. We've got item number 12, which has been spread on your desk. It is a timely bill. We did not have time to get sponsors for it. Gardner will sponsor, Locke will co-sponsor, Crawford will co-sponsor. Mr. Gardner, you want to give us an explanation of what you, if you recognize.
Would it be all right if we ran this on waiver?
If you move for introduction waiver.
No objection, I'd like to run it on waiver. This is fund the improvement for required security software. Dollar amount is $55,000.
Okay, you heard the explanation. Mr. Broughton, you're recognized.
I'm just curious, do we use a VPN here?
I'm sorry.
Do we use the virtual network here? Okay, I'm just curious, I didn't know. Right.
Other questions? I did sponsor really quick. Anybody else want to be a co-sponsor of this? Commissioner Hutton? Commissioner Stanley.
Say all voting in affirmative.
All those voting in the affirmative shall be shown still sponsored without objection. Mr. Gardner, you're recognized.
I've gotten this question today. How long does this policy last? Is this a one-year policy, or is this something that has to be renewed annually?
Yes,
1
every
year,
year
okay.
we renew. And in our application process, that's when all this has come up. We thought we had a little more time, but we're going to have it in place. We can actually sign the contract.
Okay.
Renew my motion.
Okay, we've got a motion on, properly seconded, from the board open, cast your vote on item number 12. And I've got to congratulate Angela and Angie for getting this on the board. We got it so late. Is there one vote? Anyone wish to change vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
21 yes, 3 absent.
I received necessary majority. Item number 12 is adopted. Mr. Bailey, I believe we have a report on debt obligation we need to read into the.
Yes, sir. I would like to mention one thing about what we just acted on. I do really appreciate it. And that is just to get us to the door. We don't know what else we're going to have to do, but we've been told if we don't do these things or get within an acceptable level, we still may not get insurance. But ALG has indicated this would most likely get us there. And so, it's a bad world we're in. We're probably going to have considerable increase in cost in insurance in every way. But anyway, the other document there is actually the lease of the patrol cars you approved in Constitution. And that is the final agreement as to the specifications of the $690,579, 3.43 interest rate on the lease.
So that's read into the record. Now, anybody got any questions about that? We don't need to take a vote on anything. Ms. Bell, you want to comment on what the additional information you got?
The listing of requests, that's try to make it readable as possible. We are compiling the documentation in support of each one of those requests, have it available for y'all to look at, whoever asks, whoever wants it, probably take committee meetings next week, so that you can see what county buildings is wanting, the circuit court clerk is wanting, what for, and their justification under COVID for it. So, and there's blank spots here that have not been filled in. We're waiting for information from those people. We will probably get it, but I'm not so sure that some of them will finish it, but I think most of them will. But there'll still be some more coming in. We're getting some. It's not coming in like it was, and we've tried to compile it in a way that's legible and narrow down what we've got here so you can get a pretty good idea of what it's about.
Okay, any questions? Okay, I've got a bunch of requests here. I'm going to recognize them as I've got them, if I may. Andrew, Colette, you're recognized.
Okay, I was just going to remind the members of the executive committee that we are meeting to go over the COVID information that Mary's provided Tuesday, this coming Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And since I have some new members and I'm not sure who they are, I wanted to be sure that my new members knew that we're meeting Tuesday at 6 o'clock. We'll be meeting at the back table because Bobby's going to hook it up so that Terry can participate in the conversation.
Okay, as soon as I can get with Angela, we'll notify you of the new members. If we don't have any, we may have to have a draft lottery.
We do have a quorum scheduled for this meeting.
Okay.
I think that's all this time was.
Very good. Todd?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a question, and I don't know the answer to it, you may not, and we both may need to look into it. But since Judy and Terry are medically absent, can they participate in the meeting electronically?
Well, the governor has said no, but I thought we'd appeal again.
Okay, thank you. Just curious.
Because Terry is perfectly capable. Well, Judy is too, just not mobile. So, Yeah, I promised both of them I would approach either the controller or come. Thank you for mentioning. Mr. Stidham, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is, we're gonna hold our administrative committee meeting following the executive committee at 7 o'clock or whenever she gets done with hers, Madam Chairman. So 7 o'clock, thereabout on the next Tuesday, November 23rd.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vance.
Mr. Bailey, have we heard anything about the tax notices? I've received several phone calls that they've not received their tax notice, but they've received the city's tax notice.
Mine come today. Yeah, I've got
County tax notice?
Yes, sir. Mine come today.
It's been a strange year.
Sporadic.
Information out of Nashville, getting it out of the mail service. It's, from everything I can learn, it's not local as far as actually getting, it's been on the way for close to a month.
Mine showed up today. I've already.
But did it go away?
I had a local mayor call me and said, where's my tax notice? Okay, anybody else? Andrew, you're not up there. Sure you are.
Yes, sir. I was just gonna ask Mr. Bailey about that process. You were compiling those, and I heard you say more will be coming in. Is there a deadline for those?
There's not a deadline per se. I think that as the committees, from what I've seen and their interest so far, as they look at these things, the breakdown there shows sewer and water separate. And I know Commissioner George and I have spoken, and some others have spoken. Those items really aren't in a position to be decided at this point because of the funding is so, it's still variable as to what's going to be their funding wise until we get a more complete picture of those. And we've got, the cities are involved, the counties involved, the states involved, the federal's involved, and that's not all until you really clarify where your money's going to come from. It's best to not make a lot of decisions. We can review them and evaluate them as to which one might deserve the most priority, but I think we've got a meeting with the city of Kingsport sometime. We're setting one in a few days, and as time develops, I think we'll have more time, it's going to require more time to decide those. But the others, I think we can move through those fairly rapidly, most of it, and there'll be a few that will probably stumble. Most of it, we've seen precedents in other places. Not only we've been just keeping up listening to what's going on in Tennessee, but outside of Tennessee, where it's been turned loose. That's not what they say they're using for. Of course, a lot of people say they've got things approved in Tennessee, and absolutely nothing is approved at this point, technically speaking. But they do get someone to say it does seem to meet the criteria. That's the only approval they've got. And at the same time, the portal will be allowed to go through to get a review of anything we ask for. And like on the extra money from the fire department, that would be something that may start stretching it. I don't know, that's a very good reason that will be clearly justifiable if the others are. But I think most all of the fire department stuff will go to the portal to get it reviewed. Because I asked very early about fire department, about a fire truck, and I was told no. That may have changed. A lot of things have changed under grant since it all started. Most everything's changed, it seems like. Some change one way than another. So that's the situation we're in. But I feel like a good portion of this committees can move through. From what I've seen, the interest is there. There's decisions to be made, but I think that it's an opportunity to do some good things and impact the county in a positive way and impact the taxpayers in a positive way for the next few years.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Yes, I know we haven't got to Thanksgiving yet, but Christmas is around the corner. We'll not meet again until I can. So I'll make this announcement. The Appalachian Express Course, in conjunction with the Kingsport City Parks and Recreation, will be doing a free Christmas concert on December the 11th. Doors will open at 7 o'clock, and that will be in conjunction with the Smoky Land Chorus out of Knoxville will be our guest for that Christmas concert. Put that on your schedule.
Where at?
December the 10th, the Kingsport Civic Auditorium.
10th or the 11th? She said 11th, you said 10th.
I'm sorry, it's the 10th.
Okay.
It's the 10th. That's a Friday night, if I'm not mistaken, yes. I'm sorry, that night? Bloomingdale who? Fire department, okay. Well, tell them to come on down, we'll sing to them.
I probably ought to announce it. I think you all probably received an invitation to the Farm Bureau Christmas dinner on the 16th. And of course, we meet at the same time. So, we'll talk with Zane and see if there's any wiggle room or whatever. If you all want wiggle room, you let me know. We'll do the wiggle too. Wow.
On that subject, that came from our representatives. That's the only date that we could get everybody there. So if we do something, it's gonna have to be on our end here, because that's kind of set in stone, because that's the only time we could get everybody together to be there.
I want y'all to think about it and let me know if there's an overwhelming response that we might need to make adjustment here. I'll be happy to bring it to you, okay?
I would say right now, let's move it up or down or to another date to where we can, because all our legislators should be there. And they need to hear from us also.
Okay, let's do this. I've got a request, and I'll try to respond to that. As I mentioned, the Farm Bureau has, at the Ron Ramsey Center, they have their Christmas dinner scheduled. Can you help count hands? So all those that would like to reschedule the county commission meeting to December 15th, Wednesday night, or, no, let's say Tuesday night, because we don't have work session that previous week. We'll do 14th, Tuesday night. All those in favor of that signify by saying, by raising your hand.
Tuesday?
Let's count. I'm sorry?
Tuesday the 14th.
Tuesday the 14th.
Is that right?
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
We'll cancel planning.
I counted 14. So that's a majority. There's 15. Is that what you got? Then we will put out a notice that we're gonna meet on Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock on the 14th.
Steaks, we're having steaks that night. So, you better,
Thank you all for your, go ahead.
one other thing, Friday, tomorrow night, Saturday night, we're having bull riding at the Ag Center. Also, we had our soil conservation dinner. Y'all missed a good meal. Mayor was there and Sam Jones was there, and we had about 60-some people, but we had a good meal, and homemade cobbler is good.
I just heard a motion to adjourn.